My one task for today is to finally get Nigel clipped. It has been getting up into the 70s, and he is just too hot with his winter hair still on. In typical Nigel fashion, he does not want to get caught today. I have noticed that he is extra sassy now that he's getting a tiny bit of sugar in his diet. He is just a tiny little pony though, so I'll be able to catch him eventually. Luckily, with him being so old, he isn't in terribly good shape. It looks like he is really just waiting for another mash meal from me. But I do have to get this done today, so I am going to end up wrangling him one way or another. Nigel's eyesight has been in a steady decline over the last couple of years. I keep getting comments about how I need to trim his forelock so he can see better, but he literally can't see out of his actual eyeballs. He does need all that protection from the elements and the bugs coming up on summertime. And it makes him look quite dashing if I do say so myself. While Nigel and I were having our little standoff, Tiny was also having a little showdown of her own. She has really been ramping up her gopher hunting the last couple of days. Nigel is getting pretty tired with all the trotting around that he's been doing. These two old boys have become best buds over the last couple of weeks. I thought Nigel was getting tired enough for me to catch him, but it seemed like he still had a lot of juice left in the tank. You can see all the little white patches on the ground from him rolling around trying to get rid of the rest of his winter coat. Nigel has never been particularly fond of me, and the last couple times I've caught him, we've done things that probably aren't very enjoyable for him. Since he doesn't really like being smothered on, I generally just do basic upkeep on him and don't dote on him too terribly much. He would prefer me just leave him alone. It's at this point that I'm realizing that maybe he can't see me as well as he has in the past, so I'm gonna have to switch up my plan a little bit. I opened the gate in between Frisco and Nigel scooted right in. I'm thinking with his eyesight deteriorating more, he is gonna need a pal in with him so he doesn't get scared. Since I will be shaving all of Nigel's hair off, it would be nice if he could come into the barn as he pleases. I might have to juggle the horses around because with Prim next to Frisco Bill, Nigel cannot stay out here long term. Frisco was really worried about why Nigel wasn't letting me catch him.
Watch out, girl.
Tiny was also a little bit worried that I was chasing around her pony so much. Nigel's new food is definitely springing him back to life a little bit. And you can see that he is quite exhausted from all of the prancing around that he did. I think Frisco Bill was a little bit on the jealous side that he wasn't getting caught today. Even though Nigel is super old, his heart and lungs seem to be in tip-top shape. I still probably shouldn't have to chase him around so much every time I go to catch him. Once all of his hair is shaved off, I will have to bring him in at night so he doesn't get too cold. So I may have to get together another plan so it's easier for me to catch him every day.
Hey, Nigel, come on.
Even after I get his halter on, he is hesitant to come along for the activities of the day. I really do think that his eyesight is starting to get a little bit worse.
All right.
There is a possibility that the increased amount of sugar from his new diet is having an effect on his eyes.
Okay, buddy?
Nigel does not have Cushing's or PPID,
Alright.
but he is a little bit insulin resistant. And very basically, that means that his body has trouble regulating the amount of sugar that is being stored and used in his little body. He is starting to get a few fatty deposits around his body that he didn't have before his new diet. These fat pockets are a pretty good sign that the diet that I'm currently giving him is not appropriate for his metabolic condition. Currently, he is getting an alfalfa and beet pulp pellet with extra beet pulp and a little sprinkle of senior feed. The senior feed does have a little bit of molasses in it, but I think it is too much for him to regulate properly. So going forward, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and switch him back to a super low sugar and starch diet. He will be a little bit cranky about it, but I need to switch him back before he starts having trouble with his feet again. I also noticed that he is getting quite itchy, and I don't think it's solely from his hair falling out. These horses that have some trouble regulating insulin can get really itchy, dry skin when they're not on the proper diet. Another sign that this diet is not working for Nigel is his crest seemed to double in size just over the last 2 weeks. This is pretty thick just because he is a stallion still, but this is way bigger than it normally is. Since I have him caught up, I will show you guys the scar from where he had a broken jaw. This whole area on his face when I got him was draining pus because his bones were basically rotting. Hopefully I'll be able to shave this off and get a better view today. I tried really hard to give Nigel a respectable hairdo, but he was squirming so much that this is what ended up happening.
Nigel?
He really does not like his little ears touched, so it makes putting his forelock in
Nigel.
a respectable hairstyle pretty difficult. Probably the hairiest part on his body right now is his little forehead, so I'm gonna try and get a lot of this off today. I am not super confident that he'll let me shave his head, so I'm gonna try and get as much of it off right now as possible. Really, I should have given him a fresh bath, but since he doesn't really like them, I am gonna shave him a little bit dirty today. These clippers are brand new, and I did buy a set of extra blades just in case we start getting dull. But these look like they are going to work pretty slick. Nigel did shed out about 3/4 of his winter coat on his own. I would have just let him finish out on his own, but since we're getting such high temperatures during the day, he was getting really uncomfortable with all this extra hair. I haven't clipped him the last 2 years, but it's starting to take him a little bit longer to shed all of his hair out. Luckily, I have clipped him a few times before, so he stands pretty good for it. Some of the hair along his chest and on his belly is quite dense and fluffy. These are heavy-duty clippers and they need to be oiled pretty regularly. They can get extremely hot from the friction if you don't cool them down every 5 minutes or so. Nigel is being a little bit extra squirmy today, and he did slip out of his halter. His extra thick, crusty neck is not making it easier for him to keep it on. I test the heat of the clippers and get back to work. With all of Nigel's thick hair, they are heating up pretty regularly. It is fairly easy to burn a horse's skin with these clippers if they get too hot. I don't want to give Nigel another reason to hate our time together, so I end up cooling them down quite often. Although tricky to do one-handed, this was probably one of the most satisfying spots to clip on Nigel today. He has the cutest little heart on his butt, which can be hard to see with his winter hair. When I was clipping his rear end, I definitely noticed that he's got some blubbery pockets. He also has a really thick coating around his barrel that he really shouldn't have. This is one of the main spots that a metabolic horse will start developing fat pockets. This is not normal and should not be here.
Alright, it's alright.
When dealing with older special needs horses that probably do have some kind of metabolic condition, this is one thing that I'm always aware of. Sometimes it can be hard to balance their diet properly and make sure they're keeping a healthy weight.
Nigel, it's okay, buddy. It's okay.
I think overall the new diet change was probably not beneficial for Nigel. He is extra spooky, and whether or not that's from the sugar or because of his eyesight is not very clear at this time. So moving forward, I'm gonna have to tweak his diet again, and hopefully I can figure something out. He did just have a tooth pulled not too long ago, but it seems to be healing up really nicely, so he might be able to eat some alfalfa leaves again. It took me about an hour to get one side of his body clipped. The clippers are still working great, and he is overall being a pretty good boy for this. I think Nigel is finally starting to relax. Either that or he's totally given up.
Nigel, you okay, buddy?
It took me about another half an hour to get Nigel completely
Alright.
clipped. For anyone wondering why Nigel has an oversized halter, it is because his actual jaw is not a normal size. He has a lot of extra bone growth from where he broke it, so that is the reason he's always got a halter on that doesn't quite fit him properly. I did buy him a new one, and hopefully I can get it adjusted a little bit better for him.
So saucy.
This halter was the cutest little thing I saw online, and it should fit Nigel pretty well. After trying to slip it on his head, the noseband was way too small even at the largest adjustment. I also bought him the cutest little fly sheet to keep the sun off of his new haircut and protect his pink skin, but that did not fit him either. I had some big plans of getting some really aesthetic shots of his before and after for you guys, but it looks like those plans are going down the drain. Because he is showing some signs of metabolic distress, I wanted to make sure I got a good look at his feet today. He was foundered when I got him, so that is something that I'm always on the lookout for. But luckily there wasn't any increased heat in his feet, so I think I'm going to be able to change his diet right in the nick of time. His whole haircut ended up taking me a lot longer than I had planned, so I don't have time to give him a bath tonight. It is around feeding time for the rest of the horses, so I've got to get all of the special mashes together and all of the feeds ready for the horses outside.
Okay, coming, honeys.
Sometimes while I'm at the barn doing this and that, I forget things like that my camera is on and I'm still filming. So I ended up getting about 40 minutes of me walking in and out of the barn, delivering everybody their dinner meals. I only realized I was missing my phone when I went to go film some cute little shots of Nigel at the end of the day. It is not supposed to get too cold overnight, so he should be fine inside the barn. And the next day we are ready for a bath. Here is the first look in the daylight of what Nigel looks like all clipped up. Because of his winter coat, he does look a bit like a woolly mammoth in the winter time. After he sheds out in the summer, he does get a lot more refined.
Okay.
I am going to be mixing up some special shampoo today. This is a bluing liquid, and you can basically add it to any shampoo for extra whitening. I put some up on my wish list and somebody sent it to me, so thank you so much. Nigel does still not look very impressed with me. He is quite dirty underneath his tiny little hair, so we are going to give him a good wash today. Before I mix up the special soap, I am going to add conditioner to his hair first. He has been getting more difficult to bathe, and I don't know if that's just because he's extra reactive because of his diet or he can't see as well with his eyeballs. Either way, he was a little bit of a handful to get going today. I did manage to get conditioner in his mane and tail and let that start simmering. While that sat, I mixed up a special soap that has the bluing liquid in it and just the regular Orvis soap. Nigel really hates being sprayed off with the hose, so I'm just going to try and give him a bucket bath today. Since his mane and tail do have some extra staining, I am going to add some bluing liquid right to them. Since there is already conditioner on these, it should help from staining them permanently. Nigel was not making it easy for me to get this done in a timely fashion.
Nigel, we'll just get in a wash. Nigel?
I eventually ended up getting most of his body washed and his mane and tail simmering with the blue liquid. He was not shy about letting me know that he was not happy about this situation. Tiny naturally came over to supervise some more. And when I was finally done, Nigel didn't look too blue. He had a little bit of remnants of the dye in his mane and tail. Because he is going to be outside, I am going to mix him up a special sunscreen spray. They do make a type of spray like this to keep the horse's coat from fading, but it's just easier if you mix some of this Desitin, which is mostly zinc oxide, with water, and you can just spray it on them. I made a little bit of a mess today, but this is what it looks like when you spray it on your arms, just a little bit white. Since Nigel's fly sheet didn't fit him, he's going to need some type of sun protection when he goes outside.
Nigel?
This is the cutest little cooler that someone got off of his wish list quite a long time ago. I haven't been able to use on him. As usual, the other horses were very suspicious of him wearing clothes. Skeletor is typically the one that gets the most excited about Nigel having a blanket or a sheet on.
Skeletor!
Skeletor is supposed to be recovering from a torn suspensory, so he should not be trotting around. I actually haven't seen him trot like this in quite a while, and I am pleasantly surprised that he does look pretty sound right now. It also looks like Studman is pretty sound with his fancy new shoes. I'm glad Skeletor is looking sound, but I'll be interested to see if he stays that way. He might very well come up lame tomorrow after trotting around. The boys seemed a little bit suspicious, but they weren't too worried about Nigel. I really wanted to clean out Nigel's pen while he was drying in the sun, but I didn't want Skeletor to trot around for too much longer. I did turn Frisco out into Nigel's run to see if maybe they wanted to be friends again. Since Nigel has done away with his really thick coat, it doesn't take him very long to dry. I was starting to feel a little bit sorry for Nigel. It had been a rough couple of days for him. But as soon as I turned him back out, he let me know that he was full of sass again. It seems like all of his moping was just a ruse to try and make me feel bad for him. He wasted no time showing off his new do to Prim and trying to get her attention. I do really want him and Frisco to be able to hang out this summer, but with Prim around, I think that is going to be quite difficult. Nigel still very much knows that he is a stud, and it is even worse in the springtime. He found one of the piles of poop that Frisco Bill made in his pen, and he decided that was unacceptable. I would really like to get Nigel a little girlfriend, but I think at his age and the trouble that he's been having, it might be more stress on his little old body. I have bought a few mini horses to rehab in the past, and he has not gotten along with any of them. Nigel does seem to enjoy his own personal space and does not like the other horses getting into it. I have a feeling that if I were to move Prim somewhere off property, he and Frisco Bill could get along quite nicely. But these two old boys just fight over her too much. Naturally, as soon as I wasn't watching, Nigel rolled in mud. So this is the best I could do for a after shot of Nigel. Even though this little turd is a thorn in my side sometimes, I am glad that he is doing relatively well for his age. I am not sure how much time I have left with this guy, so he will get spoiled until the end, whether he likes it or not. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.